Hello friends, it's me Kish again. So today's video is about Kamala Harris. So finally now it is official that Kamala Harris is Joe Biden's pick for Vice President of the United States if he is ever elected president, right? We'll see what happens in a few months, but that's not the point of discussion here. So everyone is, not everyone, but a lot of people are celebrating that. What do you call one? She's a woman as a vice president pick, though I don't know why, because the Republicans already had a woman in what was her name from Alaska, Sarah Palin, who John McCain had picked as his VP running mate. So a woman has already been picked. Yeah, now you can celebrate that she's the first Indian and also African American woman to be selected. So that may be so some are celebrating these great roots of her. Though there are questions about her African American, yeah, sure, her dad was African American, but she's one from California. It doesn't really represent the South. Which is where the whole oppression of the blacks and all the history of the things that happened what do you call are from. So maybe yes, she can represent some of it, but does she really have any what do you call any appeal outside of California remains to be seen. As far as the Indian Americanness of her is concerned, again, yeah, a lot of people are celebrating, and then I see among my Indian friends as well. What do you call the people I know? So there is two kinds of things that they are playing out in their mind. Thoughts. On one side, they're like, "Oh, this is awesome. She's a Democrat. She's going to free up immigration, everybody into the United States, especially Indians, easily and freely." Unlike what Trump is doing, which is trying to restrict immigration and H-1Bs and also green cards as well as chain migration, plus even outsourcing, right? So that is one on the one side that everybody is jubilant about, and then on the other side they are also concerned that Democrats are against Modi, especially in the treatment of Muslims or minorities in India, and how Modi abolished this Article 317 Kashmir and crackdown over there on law and order. So there and Biden as well as other Democrats have raised concerns about this. So they are worried how she is going to be on this particular issue. Is she going to be a Modi supporter or not? And we all have to remember when Obama visited India, he gave a speech probably just before he left, I guess, talking about the treatment of minorities and how it is important that the Muslims of India, who are a minority, but they are still larger in number than neighboring countries like Pakistan and Afghanistan. And India is the second largest Muslim populated country in the world, for folks who may not know this already, after Indonesia. So it's a rampantly growing population as well. Given that, all these concerns of Democrats, so that's the other worry that people of Indian origin or Indians as well are expressing, right? But I feel that these are, yeah, sure, these are concerns, but all of these are missing the main concern, and I don't see anybody in the media anywhere talking about the real concerns of a Kamala Harris vice presidentship, or for that matter, any Democrats vice presidentship and presidency, right? So this video, I'm going to talk about the real concern Democrats getting into the White House, right? And especially Kamala Harris and the scenario we have with her and Joe Biden. So let's look at, and that has to do not with her Indianness or not with her whether she's African American, black, or anything, or she's from California or from where. It has to do with the history of Democrats in America, right? So over the last 100 years, there is with no exception of any Democratic president, Democrats have taken the United States, either they have taken them to war or started wars across the globe. What do you call? Starting from World War I, World War II, then came Nuking Japan, starting the Cold War with the Soviet Union, and all the wars in the Cold War. That is the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and the Afghanistan One war. That is the when Afghanistan or a Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, United States covertly through the CIA supporting Pakistan and sending terrorists, what today are terrorists but back then were freedom fighters, over to Afghanistan to fight the Soviets, right? So that is the other war. And then most recently in Bill Clinton and Obama's presidency, being highly instrumental in creation of Al Qaeda as well as ISIS, right? Remember these two terrorist outfits. Before Bill Clinton was president, there was no Al Qaeda. Similarly, before Obama was president, there was no ISIS, and luckily for us, soon after they stopped being president, these organizations were also cleared out. ISIS by Trump and Al Qaeda by Bush. Of course, you can say some remnants still remain. Yeah, I agree. But majority, their power to do destruction and major damages have all been what do you call ended, at least, right? And the top leaders have been eliminated, though you can give some credit to Obama for doing that in the case of Bin Laden. So this is the history of the Democrats. So every single president that came to power among the Democrats has taken the United States or started a war somewhere around the world and caused misery for millions. Right? This is the foreign policy record of Democrats. I'm not saying that Republicans do not start wars or what do you call did not do damage, but typically Republicans only take wars that are already started by the Democrats and then they spread it to newer countries. For example, like when LBJ started the Vietnam War, but then Nixon came in promising to end it, but he did expand the war from not just Vietnam into Laos and Cambodia. Similarly, though what's his name? Jimmy Carter started the Afghanistan One war. It was really escalated under Ronald Reagan, and he was the one who supplied all these crazy weaponaries to these mujahideen in Afghanistan. To me, he is the father of Islamic terror, because all this nonsense that we have lived through for the last 30, 40 years started thanks to these actions by Ronald Reagan. So he kind of escalated the conflict. And then when coming to both the Bush, the daddy Bush and the son Bush, what do you call, they again just took the Afghanistan war and spread it to neighboring countries, which is like Iraq, right? They you can say they started these wars, but if you really look at it, Iraq is just a neighboring country of Afghanistan. Yes, it's not maybe contiguous neighbor because there is Iran in between. So far, nobody has had the guts to start a war with Iran, right? And we don't never know what the next Democrat is probably going to do in that aspect as well. So, having said that, the other point to note also is whenever a vice president has taken over midterm from the president in the democratic establishment in the last 100 years, they have been the worst war starters you can imagine. So, what am I talking about? Who are the two Democrats who took over from VP to president in during the middle of a term? The number one, and these are when the two so-called great heroes of the Democrats, one is FDR and the second one is JFK, passed away, or one was assassinated obviously in the middle of their term. So when FDR passed away, his VP was Harry Truman. He took over as president, and what did he do? He has done the worst atrocities imaginable. What do you call it? Probably some of the worst wars in American history. Nuking Japan. This is a Democrat in the entire world is the only person who has ever used a nuclear bomb. So can we forget that? Number two, starting the Cold War, right? Soviet Union was an ally of the United States in World War II. Right after World War II, they turned around and started fight with the Soviet Union, who is just your ally, who helped you defeat Hitler in Germany. Tell me about that. And Democrats making peace, right? And that's what you hear on CNN. Number three, the first war in the Cold War was the Korean War. not started, but America got into the war. What do you call? Thanks to Harry Truman, who had no business over there. Unnecessary, completely. Then come to the other, which is LBJ, who took over when JFK was assassinated. What did he do? He started the worst, most gruesome, most unnecessary war in American history, which is the Vietnam War, killing millions of people, including, I don't know, 50, 60, 70,000 American soldiers as well, or probably I don't know the exact number. You can verify that. Right? So this is the history of what happens when a vice president takes over as president in the Democratic Party. So now we might, if God forbid, if Biden wins in next 2 months, we might be looking at such a scenario. Even though she may not take over midterm, Biden is going to be AD in like a couple of years. So, and given his mental state already, it's really Kamala Harris who is going to be the real president, right? With what can Biden do? And look at where we are in the whole world. We just recently had a flare up between India and China, the two largest populated countries, the region of Kashmir, which borders countries fighting with each other. On one side is the Muslim world, and Pakistan is the one which is what do you call neighboring country to Kashmir. There is a big dispute between India and Kashmir over that. Then one side there is India, and on the other side there is China. And everybody now wants to settle scores with China, given the COVID, and given that they are the factory of the world, and everybody doesn't like it, especially with Trump. But at least Trump so far has been a very sensible person. Yes, he has hit back at Iran, he has hit back at China, taken action against all these, ended ISIS. So some of these wars that our military action that Trump has been involved in, but he has been sensible and sane not to start any wars. Not just that, he is negotiating peace deals between India, China, so that they can reduce their conflict, and most recently between UAE and Israel, and even in the Iran situation and the North Korea situation, Trump has been most sensible and not letting it escalate unnecessarily into a major conflict. But can we say the same about Democrats, especially looking at their history of what has happened in every single presidency of a Democrat in the last 100 years, like I just described to you? So imagine tomorrow, in a couple of years, one thing, the first policy of Democrats is to pull out of Afghanistan. What is that going to lead to? Terrorists taking over Afghanistan, the Talibanis, in no time, once again, like they did back in 1996 under Bill Clinton. And what is that going to result in? So the last time, what do you call, that luckily did only resulted in Pakistan acquiring the nuclear weapon. It did not result in Pakistan's government itself getting toppled by these Talibanis. But this time, Pakistan is in a most what do you call, precarious situation, with the economy in the doldrums, with whatever sham of a democracy, and it is waiting for a revolution or another coup to take place. With Talibanis taking over Afghanistan, what is the guarantee? Pakistan is also not going to fall into the hands of the Taliban or some thugs like that, and they don't get to control the nukes. Can we guarantee that? This is the policy that Democrats want to pursue. This probably would have already happened if Hillary were president. But now we are heading straight into that. That's the scenario. And then, given the India-China tensions, what is Democrats' policies going to be against China? Right? And if there is a misadventure between India and China, are Democrats going to be able to stop it from escalating into a bigger war? Or if Modi wants to start a new attack or a war or anything with Pakistan, try to grab some territory like the Pakistan occupied Kashmir, are Democrats going to be able to stop him, rein him in, do anything, and again not let it escalate into a larger conflict? Given the history of the Democrats, I am very skeptical, and those to me are the bigger fears of what are the consequences with a Democrat in the White House, and if it is that a VP is going to either become president or kind of act as the president. Given the precedence in the Democratic Party, what kind of disastrous results can that lead to? And what it has led to in the past, we have already seen. And Democrats have already used a nuclear weapon. So they're not going to be, are they? Of course, I can understand that last time when they did it, the other side did not have a nuclear weapon. But is that going to be sufficient enough to deter them to not use it again? I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see. So, are we? Is there a risk that there could be a World War III if Democrats come into the picture? And then there is also Iran. Never, don't forget that there is a ongoing hostility between Iran and America, and the hostage crisis in Iran, the revolution in Iran. All these happened again in a Democratic term of Jimmy Carter. So I'm sure the Democrats want to settle scores with Iran, just like Junior Bush wanted to settle scores with Saddam Hussein because shit happened during his dad's regime, right? So that's another situation out there, and Israel is waiting to pick a fight with Iran whenever they get the first opportunity. So are we looking at a Democrats are going to get with Modi of India and Israel and start some serious conflicts over in Asia? Is that the future we are looking at, or are we at least thinking and worrying about that type of a future? So those are the thought-provoking conversations and topics that I wanted to bring up in this video. Obviously, I don't know the future either. I can surmise about it, but I hope that my worst fears are not what really is going to happen. So, but rather than worrying about whether she is Indian and black, yeah, those are good for vote bank politics, getting votes and stuff. The serious worry for us all should be about the policies that she is going to pursue. We can have debates and arguments for hours together on domestic policies, whether they're going to raise taxes, whether they're going to do socialism, and whether they're going to have an open border and allow everybody inside. Those are fine. But the real concerns and challenges are in the in the foreign policy that Democrats have always pursued and are looking like they might pursue in the upcoming future as well under a Kamala Harris vice presidentship or a presidency. And whether even if they don't win the election, it's not going to change anything. It may just postpone these things that I have discussed by 4 more years when the next Democrat again gets a chance and likely may even get into the White House. Right? I hope that doesn't happen even in 2024, but you can't stop it forever. Right? And also, the country is probably going to become even more socialist by 2024. Given the way that things are headed with the recession and with all this anger against Wall Street and the rich people that's going on right now, chances are we may get a more radical, more left wing in 2024, because if they don't win in 2020, because they have tried every establishment candidate possible, John Kerry, then Hillary Clinton, and now Joe Biden. If none of them can do it, they're going to have to bring somebody new and with who might also be more left wing, like a Bernie Sanders type, but he is too old. So we'll see. Maybe AOC. I don't know. Is she going to be old enough? Well, we'll figure out. That's a conversation for another day. But to what do you call? So this would be what I think we all ought to worry about, especially folks in India, because they are in the most dangerous neighborhood of this time. Right? It's World War is no longer going to be in Europe like in the 19th century, in the last century. This time, the World Wars is most likely in and around the neighborhood of India, right? With Pakistan on one side and China on the other. Pakistan just represents a larger coalition of Muslim countries. So it's really the scenarios that I can envision is America and India, the Christians and the Hindus on one side, with the communists and the Muslims on the others. Of course, the other communists, which is China or Russia, sorry, what do you call? Of course, they're not no longer communists per se, but which side they take, are they going to remain neutral or not, could be a deciding factor in the real outcome of this war. Thank you.